Today, we're talking about standing out in a crowded market, not just with a shiny logo. My guest, Angelo Ponzi, is a veteran marketing strategist with over 30 years of experience helping brands from AT&T and Kettle One to small, scrappy startups craft market-driven strategies that actually move the needle. We'll talk about differentiating when everyone says the same thing, why research beats guesswork, and how to make smart brand moves without wasting your budget on this bonus episode of The Business of Tech. Are your customers getting the most from their Microsoft 365 Business Premium subscriptions? Are you delivering maximum value while ensuring best-in-class margins? Nerdio's new modern work features let you streamline the management of Microsoft technologies like Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, Intune, and Defender. Reduce the need for multiple tools, consolidate your vendor stack, and deliver greater value to your customers. Help your customers maximize their investments, free up your team for strategic tasks, and drive meaningful business outcomes. With Nerdio Manager for MSP, a single, flexible platform with mix and match plans ensures a flexible, perfect fit for you and your customers. Deliver solutions that achieve real business impact. Visit getnerdio.com to find out more. Well, Angelo, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm interested to talk about brand and differentiation, particularly because as I think about the managed services provider space and IT services, this is a real space that it struggles to get its message out and differentiate. And there's a lot of people that will do the classic, like, hey, we're good with our people. We're good with technology. We're going to help you with your cybersecurity. Like everybody starts to sound the same when you start looking at it. Talk to me a little bit about the way providers can deal with that struggle and how they think about building a brand that really differentiates.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things we look at when we're working with different companies is how are you delivering your message? How are your competitors delivering the message? Then we start to look at things that overlay, and then we look for gaps. And because if we're all saying the same thing, I call it the ante, potentially it's important to the customer base, so we have to say it. Now, how do we say it differently? Most small businesses, medium-sized, they tend to want to be more company-centric in their messages, to your point. We got great people. We've been around for 30 years. We got a lot of technology experience under one roof. And it's something everybody can say. So the point is, how do you find something that differentiates you? And so what I tell companies, what we want to do is we want to flip the script, be customer-centric in our message, provide value and benefits to them. Why? Not hiring us because we've got 25 years of experience. They're hiring us because we solve a problem. And by changing that, I find that many cases, in most cases, it's not what the competitors are doing. So it becomes an easier way to differentiate yourself because now you're trying to solve the problem and the pain, get enough pain points out there. You're going to find one that somebody has, and then you can address it. All the other stuff we talked about are the reasons to believe, not the reasons to buy. I worked with a company, it was a 75-year-old company, and they just kept pounding that 75 years. And I said, who cares? You didn't start the business. Somebody did a good job. You guys have been doing a great job, but they're not buying you because you're 75 years old. It just says you're doing something right. Now we need to understand how we deliver those benefits. And the same thing with managed services, for example. I probably have 5 friends that have managed service companies, and they all start to sound a little bit the same, and they're all looking for ways to vary conversations. How do you change? How do you look at different things? They don't want to go, well, we're going to offer a new service that nobody else has. Well, unless you own the IP and you can really claim it and own it, and then it's easy to copy. There's a process that we use called VRIO, which is it valuable? Is it rare? Is it easy to imitate? Basically, are the 3 points I like to struggle with. So yes, it's valuable to the client. It's rare means that we have it, nobody else does. But then there's that key of easy to imitate. So if it's easy to imitate, I can do it. If you made an investment, it means the other competitor would have to spend millions of dollars, for example, or thousands of dollars to replicate it. They may not do that. So you have a temporary or a permanent competitive advantage. And those are the kinds of things that you want to bubble up to the top that help differentiate you.
Now, how do you balance the long-term brand building, the kinds of things, the pillars that are going to be out there, with your also need to generate leads and drive immediate revenue? Because marketing's got to play in both buckets. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, brand building takes time, and there's no doubt about that. And one of the things that I always ask companies and ask your listeners, if you had a 30-second elevator ride, how would you explain your company to the person in that elevator? Then go ask the other 5 or 6, 7, whatever number of key people that are out there selling or servicing, and ask them to do the same thing individually. Don't put them together in a room. And I got money that says if it's 5 people, you'll get 5 different answers. And that's the place to start because you've got disparity in the message that you're delivering. And so you have to start with, who are we? What are we about? There's a statement I use. It was actually CEO Black & Decker once said, people don't go to a DIY store to buy one of our drills. They go because they need a hole in the wall, right? And so what business are you in? You're not in the managed services business. I'm not in the marketing business. I'm in the business of solving some problem or delivering some value. And so that's always hard for companies to step back and take a look at that. And understanding that kind of platform, your pillars, if you will. Usually when we're doing messaging work, there's 4 or 5 pillars that we're building everything off of. It's about consistency. And it gets back to, if everybody says something different, how do you get them all to say the same thing? Because if you're saying you're X, Y, and Z, but the market thinks you're ABC, then you've got problems, right? So there's that kind of due diligence work that really needs to be done in understanding what your customers and prospects think you are, who you think you are, what your competitors think you are, and start to bring all those together to create a cohesive message that you want to deliver over and over and over again. So if you think of marketing more at the top of the funnel, right? I grew up going sales and marketing, sales and marketing. It's actually marketing and sales. Marketing is at the top of the funnel, right? We're building the image, we're building awareness, we're changing the perceptions and creating motivations, if you will, to switch or to change or to buy. And then at some point in time, sales takes over and it delivers, ultimately the signing of the contracts and all those kinds of things. But there has to be that consistent delivery. And that's what builds over time because you build a reputation. It's all about reputation as well, is what your brand stands for. I had a client, again, we were talking about service. And I said, well, what's the service policy? And he was like, well, if they've got a problem with our software, they can send us an email. But if we don't respond in 48 hours, you can call us. I said, well, we basically just told them is we're never going to answer emails. So give us a phone call. And he goes, no, that's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Right. So it's really understanding how all this stuff shapes what your brand stands for, because ultimately that's what it is.
It's interesting because you said it just now, and you said it in stuff that I'd read prior to us talking. You've talked about the fact that you can't solve a brand problem without really understanding the market. Are there particular research methods that you think bring actionable insights, particularly for like SMB and smaller mid-market style companies in the B2B space?
Yeah, well, research is a misnomer in my opinion, and I've been doing this for a really long time, is like, oh, it's really expensive, I can't afford it. And that's not true. To just go interview your current customers or prospects or people that your past customers. Why did you select us? If you were to describe us to one of your peers, how would you describe us? Right. So now you're getting, well, you're an XYZ. And it's like, well, no, that's not actually who we are. You know all the products and services that we sell. If you were to break us down like a human being, we all have characteristics. If you break the brand down in characteristics, what are those characteristics that we define as a brand, right? Responsive, easy to work with, friendly people, whatever it happens to be. Those create the characteristics that you can start to use in your messaging and in your communications. But without knowing any of that, how do I talk to you? That's my whole thing. I just did this presentation where the whole first part of the presentation was just all these different individuals and, how do I talk to these? How do I communicate to these different individuals with my marketing message? If I don't know who they are, what motivates them, why do they get up in the morning? Do they have families? What are their concerns? What have they tried, never tried? Or is it new to the brand? So there's all these kinds of issues that you really need to understand in order to create relevant messaging to convince people to give you a try. I mean, it's all about trial, right? If we've not used you, I got to try you. And how do I get you to try me, or at least include me in the consideration set? I'm actually doing some work where one of my clients wants to rebuild a website. And so I'm interviewing website designers. And they're all like, oh, we create great work. And I'm looking and going, I don't see all the great work you're telling me that you do. How'd you get here? And so you start to kind of create that. I want to understand who you are, what's your process. So we're really highly creative. Okay. What does that mean? What's that process? How are you going to solve my problem? And I think that's where for your customers, it's that are out providing services, and, what's your trading area? Are you national? Are you regional? Are you local? You have to understand your competitive set. If you're a national organization, providing services, that's very different than, if I'm in Southern California, you're Orange County and San Diego and the Inland Empire. How many competitors are in your backyard? What are they offering? What are you offering? How do you differentiate those services, and which ones get you through the door? Right? That land and expand strategy. You can't solve everybody everything, but maybe there's a pain you can solve to get your foot in the door.
One of the things I keep hearing is in these conversations is that every business needs to find its unique value proposition, right? Everyone talks about that. But particularly when I think about small organizations, oftentimes they actually don't necessarily have that, right? Because if you think about like a lot of small businesses, there are other small businesses out there. And if I think about the managed services, IT services space, there's likelihood that they're not necessarily purely unique. How do you build a powerful brand when what you're doing is in that space where you're not necessarily truly unique? You're just doing your version of it, in your community.
Yeah. Well, I frankly, for me, it's getting out there and networking with people. A friend of mine who's actually in managed services, 5 years ago, I didn't even know this guy. I met him in a networking group. As we become friends and I've gotten to know his business, he's top of mind now. And I'm sure if I looked at him and the other people that I know, to your point earlier, they're all going to have a lot of similar services. So why are they going to differentiate? The other thing that companies don't do is they don't ask their current customers for referrals. And it's scary because you don't want your customer to think you need more business or whatever, right? But those become a great source of opportunities to leverage, whether it's testimonials or literally direct referrals. Hey, we're looking to expand. I want to add some new people, but whatever it happens to be, or we're looking to add this new service. Anybody that might be interested in something like this is having a conversation. So to me, it's about relationships. I mean, that's how with my business. I mean, I think, when I was doing, this is 12 years old, when I started explaining fractional CMO, I had to sit there and go, what's a fractional CMO? We have no idea who that is. Now that's not the problem. And now the problem is everybody and their brother, just like, digital agencies, they're all over the place. And now we're starting to see people that are not fractional CMOs call themselves fractional CMOs. And now they create confusion in the market. And that's the other thing is the market confused about what all these different services are, and in trying to market everything at once, it is confusing. And so is there that niche, or is that product or service that you can really become known for and expand? There's a group I've seen actually at golf courses, at golf events, and they really promote their email, it's not email marketing, but it's their email service where it can identify, all this different stuff. And that's what they promote, but it's a tiny segment, but we all need it, right? And so they've zeroed in on that pain point that they can really leverage to get that door open.
Is there a particular tipping point or a series of factors where a business should really think about repositioning their brand? And then based on that, are there risks to balance that against?
Yeah, there's always, again, part of it is how old is the brand, right? My business craft is actually a third evolution in 12 years. And it was risky every time that I did it. But I did it because so when I first started this, we were a little heavy on research, and the company name reflected that. And I realized about 3 years in, one day they started calling me the research guy. And I was like, okay, I've kind of gone overboard, because there are all these other services that I really want to do, being a fractional CMO, they're getting it confused. So then we went through a rebrand, and then that rebrand, after a few years, I realized that it was a company that I sold years ago. The name came up and I grabbed it back and started using it. Now it was adding more confusion into the market. So there's a risk if you have a certain reputation and who you are and people know your name, just to kind of change your name doesn't make sense. But to kind of refresh in what your positioning, your messaging, maybe even your visual graphics and things like that, I always encourage that, right? As far as a refresh versus a rebrand.
Now, as we wrap up our time together, I want to get one last little bit of insight. How much do you think AI is going to influence what you're doing on the marketing side?
That's a great question. I get asked that all the time. It's definitely changing, Mark. I actually have been working in the AI space for about a year now, working with some clients. And I saw this digital agency, it was a little over a year ago, stand up at a meeting and say, I fired all my copywriters today. I'm only using ChatGPT. And the other marketing people, including myself, were like, oh my God, why would you do that crazy thing? If you look at the vertical markets, the ones that are really being impacted right away by AI, one of them is marketing. So I see it from blogging standpoints. I see it in a lot of different aspects in social media, and certainly the idea of creating agentic twins and videos. It's coming on really fast. So I think it's definitely going to have an impact. The problem I see in this industry, as well as others, is it's like the Wild West, that people are just using it left and right, and they don't truly understand what they're wielding yet. They don't understand prompts and those kinds of things. So I think it's going to take a little time, but definitely in marketing, it's going to certainly have an impact.
And that help with prompts and guidance, that's what the IT services side can do. Angelo Ponzi is a veteran marketing, branding, and research strategist with over 30 years of experience helping companies from global brands like AT&T, Ericsson, and Ketel One Vodka to emerging businesses craft market-driven strategies that drive revenue and minimize risk. Having built and sold 2 companies, he brings a founder's perspective to brand building, repositioning, market entry, and product launches. Angelo, if people are interested in continuing the conversation, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is to go on LinkedIn and connect with me there. That has access to my website and everything else. And I recently published a book called The Strategy Blueprint, which is all about the conversation we've just had. And you can get access to it there. It's on Amazon.
Well, there's all your next resources. Angelo, thanks so much for the conversation.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The Business of Tech is written and produced by me, Dave Sobel, under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you've subscribed or followed on your favorite platform. It's free and helps directly. Give us a review, too. If you want to support the show, visit patreon.com/MSPradio and you'll get access to content early. Or buy our Why Do We Care merch at businessof.tech. Have a question you want answered? We take listener questions, send them in, ideally as a voice memo or video to question@mspradio.com. I answer listener questions live on our Wednesday live show on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you've got a comment or a thought on a story, put it in the comments if you're on YouTube, or reach out on LinkedIn if you're listening to the podcast. And if you want to advertise on the show, visit mspradio.com/engage. Once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you again on our next episode.
Part of the MSP Radio Network.